Gear is an essential part of every thru-hike attempt. Today, I want to share with you the 12 pieces of gear that helped me be successful in thru-hiking the Appalachian Trail and stayed in my bag from Georgia all the way to Maine. When deciding to hike any long trail that you're going to be out there for over 2,000 miles, gear is an essential part of whether you succeed or whether you fail. The first piece of gear that wound up helping me succeed all the way from Georgia to Maine is a part of my big three. It is the Z-Packs Offset Duo. This tent started with me in Georgia and it wound up summiting with me on top of Katahdin because yes, I carried my backpack all the way to the top with all of the gear in it, and this was a part of that gear. The Offset Duo served as a fantastic tent. Not because it was just me by myself, but I also had Leo with me. This tent provided more than enough room for me, my gear, and my dog, and all of his gear to keep us dry and warm on the coldest of nights, on the rainiest of days, all the way throughout our thru hike, and I would highly recommend it to anybody that is looking to thru hike the Appalachian Trail. All right, the second piece of gear that came with me all the way from Georgia to Maine was my NU25 headlamp. This headlamp was used in the early morning hikes that I started out in Georgia all the way to the late nights that I was pushing into Maine, whether it was setting up camp or getting up early. This is definitely a piece of gear that I recommend everybody has in their backpack. Super lightweight, super affordable, and highly reliable piece of gear. All right, the third piece of gear that helped me be successful all the way from Georgia to Maine is my Z-Packs bottle sleeve. This might seem like an insignificant piece of gear, but it was attached to any version of the backpack that I had everywhere from Georgia all the way to Maine, and it made it very easy and accessible for me to be able to access my water throughout the day, along with having the additional cover to keep it in there whenever I bent over or was doing any type of climbing or scrambling or anything like that. So this is a piece of gear that I highly recommend as well. All right, the fourth piece of gear, and I don't want to make a stink about it, but it is the Bogler trowel. This piece of gear right here definitely was able to dig cat holes from Georgia all the way to Maine. As you can see, I still have not cleaned it. That's dirt, not poop. However, fantastic piece of gear, definitely a necessity, and I recommend everybody have one of these in their kit. The fifth piece of gear that made the entire trip was this Dyneema stuff sack. Now this is a generic stuff sack that you can find on Amazon. This is the large version. I had one of these stuff sacks that I carried all of my clothing items in. The second stuff sack didn't come with me the entire way because that's the one that I would put my 20-degree quilt in, and it is the medium version. So one large version carried my clothes, the other medium version carried my quilt, and I wound up sending that home and switching it out for the warmer weather quilt later. But this is an essential piece of gear and it worked great. The sixth piece of gear that made it with me from Georgia to Maine is my Hilltops food bag. I had a custom Hilltops food bag made before I left on my thru hike, and Hilltops did a fantastic job putting one picture on the front, an additional picture with my logo on the back. And yes, this piece of gear came with me the entire trip, and it carries a 4-day food carry very nicely, and this is the large one with the expanded bottom and the spoon stash in it, and probably going to continue to use this for many more trips to come. All right, the seventh piece of gear that made the entire trip with me was my CNOC Collapsible Bottle. Now, I use this for several different things. This is one that actually came with me the entire trip, and it was my filtering system. I would attach to my Cat-O-Nine Be-Free, which this also came with me the entire way, except for I would replace it about once a month. But the collapsible bottle had several different uses. I would use this thing to filter my water. I also had an additional one of these in my backpack so that when I was in shelters or in the tent and I had to go to the bathroom at night, I would use it as a pee bottle. So not mixing the two up. Don't do that. That would be bad. All right. But I also had a third one of these that I carried with me to carry extra water if I was going into a dry camp, so that I had the ability of carrying 3 liters of water with me. One in the water bottle that I carried up front, and then the 2 collapsible bottles, one with the filter, one without the filter, and then the 3rd collapsible water bottle I used at night. The 8th piece of gear that came with me the entire trip is the Z-Packs Down Possum Beanie and Gloves. Now these are not a combination and they don't come together. You do have to buy them separately. However, this definitely kept my bald head warm on those really cold nights, and these would also provide gloves for when I was sleeping, but as well as during the day if it was cold and I was hiking, I would also put these gloves on as well. So these made it the entire trip. I wound up never sending them home, afraid that when I got up to Maine in that colder climate, even in July, that I might experience some nights that I might need them, and didn't wind up using them a lot in the north. However, they did go with me the entire trip. Highly recommend them. Let's move on. The 9th piece of gear that made it with me the entire trip is my Nitecore 20,000 milliamp battery bank. This was an essential piece of gear, being that I was vlogging out there on the Appalachian Trail and I needed to keep my phone charged, my camera charged, and everything, all of my other electronics, if I was going to be out there for an extended period of time. It was always with me and it never failed me. So this is definitely a piece of gear that I highly recommend. The 10th piece of gear that made it with me for my entire thru hike is the Anker Prime 67 watt 3-port wall charger. It comes with 2 USB-C ports as well as a USB-A port. A very effective piece of gear to have on you for your thru hike. The 11th piece of gear that made it all the way with me is my FlexZero Pump. I absolutely loved this piece of gear. It made me more efficient in camp. When I got to set up all of my sleep system, I could just pop this thing into my mattress, hit that power button, and go on about my business while it filled up my mattress for me. It also will reverse the air and suck it out if you would like. So I highly recommend the FlexZero Pump as a part of any backpacking kit. The last and 12th piece of gear that helped me make it from Georgia all the way to Maine is probably the most essential, and it was my Creeper toe socks. These socks right here are made of Marino wool. They are super breathable, and carrying 3 pairs of those socks with me helped me keep my feet dry on almost every single day of my thru hike by just switching them out every single day and then washing and drying them when I got into town. They are fantastic at moisture wicking, but they are also fast drying for those rainy days and or the water crossings that you definitely will experience while you're out there. They helped keep my feet in great condition, therefore making me super successful in completing my Appalachian Trail thru hike. Those are the 12 pieces of gear that helped me be successful in my thru hike. I hope this information helps you on all your future endeavors. If you will, like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys on the next one.